Well, as you know, the congressional hearings are happening now. They're coming forward with information about the fact that they are aware that there are UFOs or UAPs, right?
You're like a master manifester, right? And I remember I got the chance to give a speech there, and I said that when the first time you told me about your desire and your dream to do this, I was like thinking, gosh, how hard is that going to be?
I was filming for my own network about gratitude, and I realized that a lot of people out here are working, putting forth a lot of effort, energy, and their own money. In some cases, all the money they have left over into spreading consciousness through various platforms.
So that's our purpose here on Earth, that we are here providing the universe the opportunity to observe itself through our unique conditioning biases. Hi, welcome to my think tank, a platform developed for lively discussions and debates. Here I bring together friends, colleagues, and experts to delve into some of the most relevant matters of culture, science, and spirituality. The format is a conversation platform. Through deep conversations and consideration of different perspectives and ideas, we aim to broaden our understanding of various topics and tackle some solutions to the challenges facing our world. We hope you will benefit by being on this journey with us as part of our growing community of truth seekers. So without further ado, let's meet today's guest. Billy Carson, what a pleasure to have you with me again. And what a great weekend we spent together. I'm just like blown away coming back from Miami. I definitely came back tanner, but also I came back with higher levels of consciousness infused throughout my body and my whole spirit. And so I wanted to just touch base with you. It's been a while since we've had a podcast, and this one is actually on my podcast called Think Tank, where we actually discuss all kinds of challenges, issues going on in the world, and try to come up with ideas on how to fix some of those challenges and issues. And there's so many that I'm excited to touch upon with you today. But before we get into that, I'd like to have you give an update on what happened this past weekend with the first annual Conscious Awards that were held in Miami at the Arsh Center, which was a beautiful venue. It was well attended. And a lot of awards were given out, and maybe you could talk about your vision behind it and how it all came to fruition.
Oh, definitely, man. I'm glad to be back, and man, you do have a hell of a tan. I could tell,
I definitely
man. Wow. Yeah. So you really are my brother now.
Yeah.
But no, it was an amazing weekend. About a year ago, Elizabeth and I came up with the idea for holding a Conscious Awards because we saw the need to give people a special level of recognition. The epiphany kind of came to me after I was working on an episode that I was filming for my own network about gratitude. And I realized that a lot of people out here are working, putting forth a lot of effort, energy, and their own money. In some cases, all the money they have left over into spreading consciousness through various platforms. I mean, even take a person like yourself, Robert Grant, you're busy, you're running multiple businesses, you're multitasking, you're the head of so many corporations, and then you cut out time, you carve out valuable time. That time is money, right? So you carve that time out to put into the effort of helping mankind. So in my position, in my mind, I'm like, listen, I'm in a position to find a way to help people get recognition. And I think that people aren't looking for recognition, but when they get it, it's a great feeling to know that, hey, the fans voted for me, the people love me, and this is the best way they can say, hey, I appreciate you and thank you. So that's what we did. And it was a full house, red carpet, black tie. People came looking beautiful and sharp. Everybody was amazing. We filled up the bottom bowl of the Adrian Arsh Center, which is a huge venue. And we had people as high as the third and fourth tier. Great performances and a lot of great awards, and people got great recognition. And what I loved the most was the diversity of the winners. It wasn't just all one race here, one race there. It was a mixed crowd, and everybody loved one another, and everybody was there for one purpose: to spread love and light.
Yeah, no, that was really beautiful, and I was honored to be a part of it. And thank you so much for putting it together. I think that I'm sure it was kind of an odyssey, but you're like a master manifester, right? And I remember I got the chance to give a speech there, And I said that when the first time you told me about your desire and your dream to do this, I was like thinking, gosh, how hard is that going to be? That's kind of like trying to take a whole city that's already built and put it underground or something. And I thought, oh yeah, well, that's what Billy's already done before. So if anyone can do this, it's definitely Billy, and you persevered through it. So I really want to congratulate you. It's very rare to see true leadership. And when you really truly lead, people follow. And that's why I was willing to carve out my time, because I saw you as taking a really strong leadership role, and I love seeing that. I really love seeing it, and it's a rare thing when it is seen.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. We put our heart and soul into this, and next year is going to be even better. We just started planning next year's event this morning.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, there's so much stuff that we can go to. One of the first topics I want to talk with you about is all of this disclosure stuff that's going on right now, kind of at the government level. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this congressional hearing that just happened a few days ago or last week, and where you think this is going and what's behind it all.
Yeah. Well, as you know, the congressional hearings are happening now. They're coming forward with information about the fact that they are aware that there are UFOs or UAPs, right? And that there are these vehicles that they claim they don't know how they levitate, how they gravitate, how they propel themselves. They don't understand the propulsion systems. They don't understand where they're coming from. Are they multidimensional? Are they anomalies? Or are they from foreign countries? And so the premise behind this is, I think a lot of these UFOs or UAPs are actually our own. These unacknowledged black budget projects that run with no congressional oversight, that they themselves may honestly not be privy to the information about them. And then also there's a percentage of them, a small percentage, which I believe are actual UFOs, other amazing advanced civilizations that are watching us and have been watching us for a very, very long time. I think there's a combination of both. They're not going to be specifically clear as to which one is what, but I do think they may have an idea or understanding of some being private corporations that are being funded through these unacknowledged projects, and some that are real UFOs. But what they're trying to do, and to answer your question, is they're trying to right now. They're warming us up for the fact that alien life, in fact, does exist. And the underbelly of that is the fact that there are no more wars to create for at least the military-industrial complex. I mean, they can force one, but there's nothing out there. We pretty much went and brought democracy to the world. And so now the next big race is the space race, and the next big push for trillions and trillions of dollars is in space. And how do you get the American people to donate that money, or people of the world to donate that money through taxes? You have to have fear. And the fear is going to come from above, and they're going to promote it as potential danger, threat to global security, threat to our safety and security here. We can't stop them from accessing our nuclear missiles. We can't stop them from accessing our bases. And so what they're doing through fear is they're building up this now need for them to come and save us. In order for them to save us, we got to say now our budget for this is going to be $10, $15 trillion. That money is going to go into unacknowledged black budget projects and contracted projects through the Pentagon. And then they're going to use that money to really make themselves very wealthy by building these weaponized space systems.
So, wow, that's a deep one. So you believe then the companies that are participants in the military industrial complex, right? And, these would be some household name companies you think are behind why all of a sudden this is getting so much traction and discussion in Washington, because that's an angle I hadn't considered, but it's got some believability associated with it, because there would be a lot of money associated with that. And so, it's kind of like that old JFK movie of, if you can't figure out why something happened, just follow the dollars. So there's, and, one thing I learned when I was president of Allergan Medical was that nothing shows up in the media unless somebody placed it in the media, and it's not from investigative reporting. Investigative reporting is such a tiny, 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 minuscule percentage of actually all the stuff that ends up in the media. You could think of everything you read in newspapers and on the news is really just paid sponsorships, because they're pumped out through what's called gross rating points, and GRPs, as we call them. And that basically drives a lot of news. And there's a spend, when I launched products like Juvederm, we would spend $30 to $50 million a year just on direct consumer advertising campaigns. And then we'd spend another 5 to 10 million just on PR, just in the United States. And the PR was, literally, and that was back when we still had reporters. Today, we don't really have reporters. What we have is shills. It's really kind of mind-boggling, because actually most outlets today don't even have reporters. They use everyone freelance. And so they're really just pitches from companies. And by the way, it's the same thing in government too, because most of the bills that end up on the congressional floor for consideration are just sponsored and written by corporations. That's a fact.
That's right.
I've been there.
Absolute
we used to say this in Washington: if you're not at the table, then you're just on the menu. And that's just the way it is. So you're basically saying something that has some basic resonance for me, especially, is this why there's been such a push also for this Space Force and, this militarization of space? And that also happened during the Trump presidency. But was that really just because people that were in the military industrial complex, which, by the way, they hire all the former generals, right? That's how it works. Those former generals become senior executives at these large companies like Northrop Grumman or Boeing or Lockheed Martin, right? Any one of these companies. And, L3, and you can just go on, Raytheon, the list goes on and on. And so that's a really powerful statement. And it frankly is the only thing that makes sense as to why these congressional leaders are all jumping onto it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a money grab. Nobody can really, not nobody, but the masses can't really see it. They're just like, oh man, there's aliens now, or, UFOs or whatever. But there's a lot more behind it. When they start publicly coming out with things like this, there's always an agenda, and they control literally every word and every sentence, every verb, every vowel, you know what I'm saying? And so they understand the frequencies. They know how to get to people through frequencies, and they know how to generate a certain level of fear and questioning in people's minds. And the thing is now, hey, instead of diverting the money to these black budget projects and having to go through these inquiries about where this 15, 20 trillion disappeared to, now they can say, oh, we took the 20 trillion and we put it over here because we have to have the Space Force funded properly. We got to create space-based weapons on the Earth defense system and so forth and so on. And those generals and all those people who are sitting on those boards and running those companies now, it's just a cash out. You're talking about billions of dollars, even into trillions of dollars. People are making a lot of money. They're going to build some of this stuff, but they don't build all of it. Sometimes they build loss leaders. So they'll go and they'll get a big contract from the Pentagon for $20 million, $30 million. And then they'll go, oh, okay, now we have a working concept. We need now to fund this for 2 or 3 billion. They'll get that money, and then they'll build something that doesn't work, knowing it's not going to work, and say, well, we need a little bit more. Give us another 3 or 4 billion to keep developing this. And years go by. Before you know it, they've got 15, 20, 30 billion dollars inside the hamper, and they haven't produced anything that actually works.
Sounds like what happened with the vaccine.
Yes.
Just saying. I don't know. I mean,
that's
all of that was funded. It's like, I called out Albert Bourla, who is the CEO of Pfizer, on my LinkedIn, because I have a lot of pharma. I've been in the pharma industry for, 20 plus years, and I have a lot of pharma followers. And when I called him out on that whole Project Veritas thing, and I said, why are you not responding? And I tagged him in it. Why are you not responding and telling us what happened? Was this guy that was claiming this gain of function research and everything, was he a real former employee, or is this some, fake or something like that? Just tell us. And nothing. And it was funny because I could see on LinkedIn who read all of the, posts, and it literally made the rounds through all the senior executive rank at Pfizer. So everyone there saw it. And I'm sorry, but it's like, I'm just not going to sit back and not call it out, or at least question. And I think, this is what's happening. People that don't know how corrupt our government system is need to know.
You need to know.
Yeah.
It's corrupt as fuck.
Man, bad. This gain of function research should have never happened in the first place. Obviously, there was an agenda behind why they were doing it, because they were planning to release it eventually at one time, or leak it by accident on purpose, which is exactly what happened. And so people don't understand how broad and wide these conspiracies are, because in this particular situation, you're talking about planning that goes on for decades. They don't plan like within a week or a month or even a year or 5 years. Their planning is a 30, 40, 50-year plan to execute something. And so when something becomes that big and that broad and that vast, people can't see it for what it really is a lot of the times.
Isn't that interesting, though? Because I think that's true with a lot of things in the world right now. It's like, it's almost like we're splitting into this world where so many people just refuse to see. So we've got films like this, Sound of Freedom film, which is, becoming quite popular, and it's faced a lot of adversity to get into the marketplace. I mean, even down to certain movie theaters, playing that movie and there's no air conditioning in that theater type of thing, right? And it's kind of hilarious stuff, but it's not so funny, and it's still been very, very successful. Yeah. But the issue there is that people don't want to see what they don't want to see. And so if you're watching Fox News a lot, then you think that, President Biden is absolutely the most corrupt president we've ever had in United States history. If you're watching MSNBC, then the entire focus is on the indictment of former President Trump, right? Exactly. And he's a piece of shit. So it's like never the twain shall meet, but yet there's so much evidence that's mounting on this topic. And I'm not watching either. I'm watching C-SPAN.
Yeah.
And C-SPAN just that doesn't give me the editorial. It just gives me the congressional hearing. And I can tell you that it's shocking to me what has happened with this Biden legacy. It's like really shocking. And I think that, all of this, and I'm not Republican and I'm not Democrat. Yeah. If I'm going to support anyone in this next election cycle, it's going to be someone that I perceive more as the independent. In this case, I would say it's probably Robert F. Kennedy. Right. And so I at least believe in a lot of the things that he is trying to focus on. But even him, right now, he can't even get Secret Service coverage for himself because Biden's not recognizing him as a legitimate candidate, which is really messed up. So I think it's time that the world wakes up to all this stuff. But then again, I also think about coming back to extraterrestrials, and I like to call it interterrestrials because they're already here.
Yeah.
It does seem to me, though, that there is going to be some global level disclosure, and I think everyone's feeling it coming, right? Yeah. And how do you think that's going to take form? I was very fascinated by the comments of Stephen Greer at the Conscious Awards on this topic, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. I believe that we're really close to alien disclosure, but this is the step-by-step process I believe that we're going to see. Right now, we have a new rover that's up on Mars, right? And so this rover it has a science kit on it. It went up after Curiosity. And so, but this rover is actually going to collect some data, which it already has, and transmit it back. This data is going to give back that there actually are microbes, living microbes on Mars. So the first breakdown of a public disclosure of alien life is going to be microbiology, basically, viruses or bacteria. That's going to be stage one. And then that's going to settle in. And I think there's going to be a step-by-step process building up to more and more complex life forms, or at least I believe that's their actual plan. On the side, though, we might see that there may be a surprise where some of these UAPs, which actually are just reverse engineered technologies that we've done from taking down UFO craft. And people say, well, how can you take down a UFO? Well, I think in the 1940s, they were testing out this particular type of radar, right? And this particular radar that they were using, Nikola Tesla was working on. He had papers that he had worked on with this particular type of radar. And this radar is so intricate, or does something to their navigation systems, and it brings them down. If you don't anticipate this particular frequency coming at your vessel, they found by accident that this was bringing the UFOs down, making them disoriented, bringing them down. They started reverse engineering them from there. So then we've got these ARVs that have been developed for decades now. You'll probably see one of these ARVs, just like the Gulf of Tonkin incident that lit up the whole Vietnam situation, the lie of Gulf of Tonkin. There'll be a lie of a UFO attack where they'll have one of these UAPs that are ours attack a U.S. Navy vessel of some sort, and that will ignite the whole threat from space, and they're diverting trillions of dollars into space, space weapons, weaponizing space. So it's a process that they're building up to little by little. First, they'll let us know that aliens are real in the microbiology, and then maybe more complex life forms, but eventually we might see a fake alien invasion through a vessel that's already ours, attacking one of our own, and then creating that fear base that people need to be able to succumb to the government, let them put the boot on our neck, and then basically take away more rights.
Now, what's your belief system on, I mean, there are a lot of different people that have different viewpoints on this topic, and you and I have never talked about this, but the concept of like evil aliens or evil ETs, right? And malevolent, let's say, that maybe exist amongst us, right? And like the reptiles, right? For example, that people often talk about. What's your view on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my view is that I believe that there's good and bad in everything, that there's yin and yang that permeates the entire universe, and that there are a lot of amazing, good races of alien beings out there, and also some right here on Earth walking amongst us literally as we speak. But I also believe that there could be some that are not so nice, right? And we know that from the Sumerian tablets, some of them walked amongst us that had malevolent aspects. In other words, they were kind of masquerading as gods, turning mankind into slaves without us thinking we were slaves. The best kind of slave is a slave that doesn't think it's a slave, working for them, doing their labor and everything else, praising them and praying to them and worshiping them and so forth and so on. But they weren't really gods. They weren't the creator of the universe. And they even knew this. So you have this dichotomy, but I believe that a lot of those from that last pyramid war have gone and left, and some of their offspring are still here, but that there are races that are looking at us right now that are interested in our development, that want to see us grow. But I don't believe they'll fully step in until we grow up consciously. I think they're looking at us as a race of babies. Anytime you see a planet that has 8 billion people on it and over 3,600 nuclear bombs pointed directly back at the people on the same planet they live on with no escape vessels, you kind of got to say, let's just take a look and see if they can get past this era of their ascension process. And so when 8 billion people are being controlled by less than 100 people, for me, if I'm an advanced race, that's a big question mark. They're not ready for me yet. I'm going to sit back and wait a little bit longer and let these 8 billion people see if they can finally realize that they are all one, and that they can stop playing the game of these ruling oligarchs and take back control of their planet. Now I say, okay, they're starting to crawl and walk a little bit. Let me come down and let them know what the deal is, and maybe we can interact with these people. But until that point, I don't think they would make themselves 1,000% completely known, because we're still in the stages right now of just being babies. We got to at least get to the toddler stage, stand up and start taking a few steps. And so, but I think that day is coming. I'm really optimistic. I believe that day is coming, and that we'll see that these races that are really looking out for our best interests are just waiting for us to get past a specific stage. It's like a video game. We got to get to the next level. And if we can get past that level, we can make it to a golden age. I think there's a lot of planets that exist in this universe that did not get past that level. And there are probably a lot of dead planets out there. I think we really have the potential, though, based on what I've seen with the raising of consciousness on the planet, that we can get past that level and take it to another and get to the next version of our ascension process, which we can actually talk and communicate with these beings openly. But we got to take back control of this planet. We have to get the planet out of the control of these oligarchs that have, I think they're just soulless avatars operating on matrix programming code. I don't even think they're real people, in terms of being a human being with a heart and a consciousness. Like
NPCs, like malevolent NPCs? That's
right. I believe that wholeheartedly. I don't think they're even, nobody can do what they do and then go to sleep at night and have a good conscience. There's just no way, so we got to break out of this matrix that they've put us into, and we've got to take back control of this planet and our love for one another.
Interesting. So you mentioned that there are different species
Mhm.
that are observing us and wanting to see us develop and grow, expand in consciousness. Can you speak more about what those species are from your perspective?
When you look at some of the ancient texts and you go into like the Vedas, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, even some of the Sumerian cuneiform tablets, you start finding that there's races that coming out of the Pleiadian star system. And no matter where you look, I've got maybe 30 artifacts here at my house, replicas of artifacts, some are original pieces, and all of them, not all, but 90% have a depiction of the Pleiadian star system on the artifact, right? This is a huge, huge thing. They're talked about in the ancient Sumerian tablets long before they appear in Homer's Iliad, the Bible, and many other places. And so there's always, why is everything always going back to the Pleiades and going back to these races that come out of there? The Aboriginals, when I went to Australia a few years ago and sat with the Aboriginal elders out in the outback, went for a long walk in the outback, their verbal handed down history for eons is that they were seated on this planet by Pleiadians. And they took me to a place in the outback at Carryong 9 that has Pleiadian hieroglyphs, which has never been translated till this very day. But the patina in the crevices of the glyphs date back 5,000 years. So we know that these people came to this planet at some point. They seeded people on this planet in Australia and also in the North America and South Americas. That's what they call them, the Star Brothers in the North and South Americas. And that they really had our best interests at heart. They literally evacuated us from, I guess, according to these races of these indigenous people, they evacuated us from a warring area where a planet was about to be destroyed and seeded us to save our race and brought us here. So I think they have our best interests at heart, and a lot of them are coming from those star systems coming out of the Pleiades.
Interesting. So, it's interesting you raised this question about Australia and the Aboriginal people that were there, because I wanted to show you something as well that and see if you had known about this that we'll get to in just a moment. But before we do that, beyond the Pleiades, which for those that don't know, the Pleiades are the star system that sits right at they're like this bluish color seven sisters, but there's more stars in it than the seven sisters. Yeah. But it's widely written about in Greek mythology, in all of the pantheon of gods, and Sumerian through to Egyptian and Greek and then Roman, and even the Slavic, as well as even the Nordic, that all have the similar thread. They're all very similar to each other. But the Pleiades, interestingly enough, sits right where the throat chakra would be on the Taurus constellation. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting because, and there's also a connection as well to obviously to the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid is supposedly where the throat chakra is on planet Earth, right in the well underneath in the grotto. So who beyond the Pleiades and the Pleiadians would you say are these non-malevolent, or let's call them benevolent, ETs?
Yeah. Well, according to some of these texts, you have these beings that came from the Sirius star system. Sirius is a trinary star system. One of the stars is a failed star, ran out of fuel. All right, Sirius B. So the Dogon called them the Nomo. So you have those tribes there. Aldebaran is another star system that supposedly some of these ETs that have our best interests at heart. Some actually even from the Orion, and what's interesting is the Great Pyramid, at specific times, the shafts align with these star systems. So you have, and there's quite a few more actually. So I think there's a lot of them that have gotten to a level where, they're part of this potential galactic federation. And, but I believe they do have a prime directive in which they wait for a certain specific time to interact with a civilization, to give them time to grow and develop and be ready to accept the next stage. If you take us right now, the way mankind is at this exact moment, and you integrate with us, in other words, they meaning, these advanced beings integrate with us now, there's a potential that we take these bad habits we have now and take them right into space, and then we become a dangerous race with ulterior motives. And so it's really, really important that we come to the point where we realize that, I'm not Billy Carson, a black man from, Boca Raton, Florida. I'm Billy Carson, part of the human race, part of the galactic race that's right now, located on Earth. And so it's a different mindset when you take it to breaking yourself down and separating yourself all the way down to that minute decimal point when you really are part of the whole. And I think that we have to get to that point where capitalism is not the ultimate goal all the time. It can't be involved in every aspect of everything. I think capitalism needs to be involved in specific areas, but you can't have it like in prison systems, and you can't have it in healthcare and things like that. Just because right now with the mindset we have, we're looking to take advantage of everyone. So we have to find a way to just grow consciously. And then these races, I think they'll be more than happy to embrace us and take us and help us get the rest of the way to where I think our birthright is, which is space.
And what do you think of? I'm sure you've heard of Arcturians. What's been your experience with Arcturians?
Yeah, Arcturians also. I forgot to mention them. Arcturians also. Arcturians are a very advanced super race of beings. Now, these Arcturian cultures, according to some of the texts and some of the writings that have been put out, even in some poems, are really so advanced. They supposedly incarnate back. Some of them have incarnated back as human beings on planet Earth and are trying to help guide mankind back to a golden age. So, I mean, this is another very, very important race as well. So you have the Arcturians, the Aldebarans, the Nomo, a lot of the beings that coming, the Illyrians, the Syrians out of the Pleiades, some of the Orions. So there's a culmination of a lot of races out there that really have our best interests at heart, but are operating on a certain level of some type of a galactic plan, where some are here interacting kind of overtly, covertly, I should say, but also overtly, but not really portraying who exactly or what they really are, just kind of like guiding the way as like a lighthouse on the edge of a dark shore and helping mankind to follow that light and go and search and become the light.
So obviously there's this big tie back to the Taurus constellation, right, which includes Pleiades. There's also a big tie back to Orion. I mean, if you look at the constellations that have the closest affiliation to what we think of as ET related, right, and then also what we have in ancient civilizations, we've got this massive preponderance of focus on Orion, Taurus constellation. Cygnus is another one, right? Dragos is probably another one. But, why this focus on Orion, and why so much attention as well to this shape of his belt, that then finds itself on the Giza Plateau, in the Xi'an Pyramid Plateau, as well as the Teotihuacan or Teotihuacan Plateau. Why such a connection to Orion?
Orion is a powerful place. Orion and Osiris is the same thing. And Osiris, when you look into the ancient text, now you discover he was the founder of the original Jedi, D-J-E-D-I, the Jedi Knights. So obviously George Lucas got into some of these ancient tablets and texts and found this out and turned it into a movie. Smart man, obviously. He got on top of this a long time ago. But the Jedi, they sense the arising and the awakening of the Orion as Orion moves into position. As it makes its rotation through the procession, there's a specific time where this rise of consciousness and the Jedi on Earth reawaken. And so this is another important thing about the Orion and why the symbol is embedded into these ancient megalithic structures. It's part of a special alignment where there's a golden age during that alignment, where the awakening on its way to that alignment, the awakening of the people on this planet and the beings that were also left here, the blood downline of some of these advanced beings that are here guiding the way. There's a reawakening. They help guide the reawakening of the Jedi, and the Jedi will return.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fascinating because if you look at all the imagery, you'll see that there's this relationship that I'm going to pull up here, just show a few images. And, you could see this is one example of Orion, which shows him having a club. Sometimes this is a bow and arrow. Sometimes, and these are arrows in his quiver that are up here. Sometimes it's depicted as the club. And then he's holding a shield or a golden fleece, and he's battling, looks like, against the bull, because the Taurus is right next to him in the sky. And what's interesting is of course, the pyramid complex is matching the belt, but not only in Egypt, also in several other places. And then the macro, when you look at Xi'an in combination with the Great Pyramid and Mexico in its location, it's also matching as well. Another much larger macro version of the same, fractal, similar, self-similar design. But what was interesting was a few days ago, I came across this thing on Google Earth. And what's interesting about this is that if I zoom in on this, right? So this is just Australia. You would recognize it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And basically I can zoom in on this. And if I just keep zooming in to this, you're going to see, look at this. There's a man
wow.
holding a club
Yeah.
etched into the ground.
Yep. Incredible. That's a gigantic petroglyph.
It's gigantic.
Goodness.
It's 2.7 kilometers long. Have you seen this before?
I've never seen that one. You just
I
enlightened
can't
me on
believe I
something new.
just stumped Billy Carson on something. Wow, that's epic.
This is amazing. Listen, this is incredible, man. Wow.
Look at this. It's 2.7 kilometers in length. So, you're talking about something that's, about 2 miles, almost 2 miles.
Yeah.
Right? Like a mile and, 1.75 miles. So that's a very, very large geoglyph.
Yeah.
Right? It was discovered in 1998. You could see it
Yeah.
from space. Yeah, definitely. But look at the detail on this thing.
Yeah. Wow.
And if we
That's
look at
incredible.
it also in like 3D, you could see, I mean, it's like, how in the heck could you get the proportions right on this?
That is incredible. Jeez. Somebody
Got an
had to be
ear
up
there.
in high altitude and lay this thing out.
It's incredible, right?
Because you have to pick the right spot, because sometimes you can't get a good lay of the land where you want to create something like this unless you go up above the land first. You have to be up in the sky, so to speak, to get a good layout, get a good understanding of what you're working with. And then you have to understand how to work those materials as well. This is incredible. Man, this is incredible.
Look at his hands, even down to his genitalia. It's like
wow.
right here.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
Well,
so
yeah, that's nuts.
How the heck did this get here? Now, some people don't know if it was done in more modern times, but even if it was done in more modern times, how would you even do it?
I know. How?
I don't know how someone could even do
and why?
It. That's the thing.
The question is why? I mean,
why would they do it? Exactly.
Yeah. Because it hadn't even been promoted as, I didn't even know that existed. I've seen, there is one out there in Australia at Carrying 9 of Thoth. They call him Thoth Amabi in Australia. So even they knew about Thoth. And his name is
Thoth Amabi, and the Aboriginal people do.
Yes, Thoth Amabi. And he's on a spaceship flying through the Milky Way galaxy on this giant petroglyph out there in the Carrying 9.
This is the one that Muhammad Ibrahim went to go and look at on Gosford Cliff?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So clearly something else is going on here. And I mean, no one knows when that was made. And it would be very difficult to date it. But I mean, the scale of it is definitely a similar scale of the petroglyphs, or rather the geoglyphs that we find in Peru.
Right. At Nazca. I mean, yeah, I've seen the ones at Nazca. They're incredibly, some of them are that large. So, wow. I mean, again, it points to potentially the same type of a designer, the designer or architect, a person that can lay that out or teach the technique at least, might be the same exact person. We know that Thoth has been in Australia. He's been in China. He's been in Egypt. He's been in parts of Europe. He's been down into all parts of Africa, where he's Tahuti, and everything else. And of course, the complete America, South, North, and South. I mean, this guy traveled the whole planet. Pretty amazing.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a coincidence.
So I'm going to take you down a bit of a rabbit hole, if you'll go with me. Right.
Let's go,
First
man.
of all, I'm emboldened now that I found something, that was like a geoglyph that you hadn't seen before. That's a shocker, man. You're like the
Yeah.
walking encyclopedia of all things, like, ancient civilization and, ancient alien stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you something you may not have seen. And this is related to my most recent work. I found that all of the pyramids around the world are based on the same mathematical relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I'm going to be presenting in a few weeks at the Ancient Civilizations Conference thing for Gaia.
Oh, beautiful.
And that's what I wanted to show you, because I don't think we haven't had a chance to talk about this just yet. Last time we talked, I showed you how the Giza Plateau was related to Metatron's cube, and then I extended that analysis out farther to include now every pyramid that's like believed to be pre-Diluvian potentially, so prior to the flood. And so basically that's what I'm going to try to pull up for you now, so you can see this design method that connects the large block pyramids of ancient Egypt to Teotihuacan, Mexico pyramids, and potentially all pyramids around the world. Let's start with a grid pattern that has a radius of 1 with circles that you can see here forming the shape of a letter T. Now, we are going to also add one other circle, which is going to be 1/2 pi as its radius. And then we're going to connect that circle to integer 2 position. So it'll be 2 over 1/2 pi. This might look a little familiar to you because it matches exactly the slope angle of the Great Pyramid, 51.8539 degrees, which is 2 over 1/2 pi. 1/2 pi being the half base and 2 being the height. Let's see what other ratios can come off of this and what other pyramids could be created. So we now have Khufu. Let's see if we can find Khafre. Khafre would then take the position of 4 over 3 for its height versus its 1/2 base. It's famously a 3-4-5 triangle. So we can check to see if the slope angle turns out 53.1301 degrees is exactly the 4 over 3 relationship. So now we have Khufu and Khafre, 2 of the pyramids on the Giza Plateau, as to why they have the slope angles that they have, following a simple grid. So let's take this to the next level and see if we can find other pyramids that might match this exact same pattern, like Menkaure pyramid. Menkaure would then take the position of 5 over 4. 5 over 4 yields us a degree angle of 51.34019 degrees. It's famously the slope angle of Menkaure pyramid, and this grid pattern yields us the exact same result. But beyond this, what about 3 over 2, which seems to be missing? Is that the Unas pyramid that's supposed to have a 56-degree angle, or possibly the Djedefre pyramid in Abu Awash, which is only 2.5 miles away from Giza? I believe it's one of the pyramids that is potentially missing, along with the 12 over 5 relationship of the famed Philosopher's Stone. Abu Rawash is 2.5 miles away from the Great Pyramid, but sits 90 meters higher than the Giza Plateau. There's another example in Scotland, Cairn, Scotland, built by Queen Victoria herself, and there's one also in Rome. This enigmatic pyramid structure is also a satellite structure just behind what is supposed to be the Djedefre pyramid that has been long destroyed. So now we have several pyramids on here: Khufu, Unas, potentially Djedefre, Khafre, Menkaure, and the Philosopher's Stone satellite pyramid in Abu Awash. Are there other pyramids that might match this? Well, let's go to Dashur, south, towards the south from the Giza Plateau. Both pyramids there have a unique angle of 43.3417 degrees, which is an 11 over 7 slope to 1/2 base proportion. And we can make that perfectly with this same grid pattern. Now, we also will need the lower angle, which is a 14 over 10 base, 1/2 base to the height relationship for the Dashur pyramid, which is known as the bent pyramid. So can we actually find this pyramid in this grid pattern, which is supposed to be, this pyramid is long believed to have been a mistake,
The angle was too steep, so they made a different angle for the top. I don't think so. Bent pyramid is also perfectly matching this. And it's not only that, but also the other enigmatic pyramid, the Meidum pyramid, that has all of its casing stones, but is somehow believed to be unfinished. A Meidum pyramid, based on its base, 1/2 base, which is 236 feet, and its height of 216 feet, will give us this 47.48 degree angle. Now let's look at the pyramids in Mexico. The Pyramid of the Sun is giving us this unique 7/4 relationship, and it also matches perfectly inside this grid pattern. And what about the Pyramid of the Moon? 10:17 relationship, and it also matches perfectly within this grid pattern. So wait a minute. We have Khufu, Khafre, Menkaure, all the Giza Plateau pyramids, the Dashur pyramids, and now the Mexico pyramids, Meidum, and the Abu Awash pyramids all matching the same grid pattern? The pyramids of Egypt and Teotihuacan, Mexico pyramids appear to match the integer grid. How many other pyramids around the world will match this grid pattern?
What do you think of that?
That's amazing. So it's creating a grid. And so that grid, it appears that with that grid, you can track and trace every location of every pyramid on Earth.
Yep. And the slope, and define the slope angle of every pyramid on Earth. It's just a function of that. And everyone is different, except for the only ones that are the same so far are, in this group that I've analyzed, are the red pyramid in Dashur and the top of the bent pyramid, which are 43.2 degrees.
Gotcha.
Now, what's interesting about this is that if we apply a musical note of the note A being 432 hertz, and we take the height divided by 1/2 the base, and then multiply that ratio by 432 hertz, it creates musical notes. Each pyramid then has its own musical note based on musical interval.
Yeah.
Now, I'm starting to work to find out how this can turn into some type of song, potentially.
Yeah. Right.
But I'm wondering how this resonates for you.
Oh, listen, this is mind blowing, because once you figure out the the song, you can then extrapolate in reverse where another frequency or sound is missing, and you'll probably find a pyramid in that exact spot.
You have just nailed it, because in the analysis that I did, right, I found a couple other things as well. And that is that, so there's something called a perfect, you may be aware of this already. Do you know what a perfect circle is and a perfect square? There's actually one size of square and one size of circle that are considered perfect. Do you know what it might be?
No, you got to enlighten me on this one.
Okay, it's a circle that has the same exact area as its circumference.
Okay.
So there's only one circle that can do this, and that has a radius of 2 and a diameter of 4. So its circumference is 4 pi.
Okay.
And which is like 12.566. And its area is 4 pi also. No other circle will achieve this. The surface area, right, when we go into third dimension for spheres, would then have to equal the volume, right, which is really important for black hole theory as well. Okay, so this is a unique artifact in mathematics. It just is. So the only square that can achieve the same feat is a square that happens to exoscribe around that circle. What I found is this: the Menkaure pyramid has a 5/4 relationship, right, which defines its slope angle of, this, the slope angle is 51.34 degrees. Okay, exactly. Now, that means that if you take 1/2 the base, it creates a perfect square. Right. So it gives you the perfect square. The Khafre pyramid has a height of 4, and its base, 1/2 of its base, is 3. So it creates with its height the perfect circle. Right. You follow my point here?
Yeah.
And then the Great Pyramid.
In the perfect circle a second ago.
And then the Great Pyramid perfectly squares the circle, where if I take 1/2 of the base using the same methodology, that and then look at the perimeter of that 1/2 base square, it will have the same exact length as the circumference of the circle that goes to the top of the pyramid into the base of the pyramid. So it squares the circle. So then that begs the question. We've got 5/4 for Menkaure, 4/3 for Khafre. Then we're missing 3/2, right? And then we've got 2/pi, right, as the relationships. And pi is just a circumference of a circle with a diameter of 1. So it's really another way of saying 2/1. So you've got the tetractys, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? But there's a 3/2 that's missing. There's no pyramid that's 3/2. We got 5/4 and 4/3 and then 2/1. Where is the other one, right?
Right.
Well, the other thing I started thinking was there must be another pyramid missing too. The other pyramid that's missing should have the perfect triangle. We've got the perfect square with Menkaure. We've got the perfect triangle. I mean, the perfect circle with Khafre. Where's the perfect triangle?
Right.
Well, if you have a dollar bill in your pocket, if you pull out a dollar bill, look on the back side of that dollar bill on the Great Seal of the United States of America is a pyramid that has the exact triangle on it that does exactly the same thing. The perimeter matches its area. And if you cut it in half, it would be a right triangle. And that right triangle would be a 5, 12, 13 Pythagorean triple, right? It's the only one. And this is the one that matches the Atlanta Fusion's Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I started looking to see if there might be 2 pyramids close by the Giza Plateau that match these proportions.
Right.
And there's a place, and there's a pyramid known as the Jed Efre Pyramid, which is only 2 miles or so away from the Giza Plateau, sits 300 feet higher in elevation, looks down on the Giza Plateau. And these 2 pyramids, there are 2 pyramids, there's one satellite behind it. The satellite behind it has a slope angle that matches the Philosopher's Stone. Even down to counting the blocks. When I count the blocks, if you look on the back of your dollar bill, the number of blocks on the first 4 concourses are matching the number of blocks on the dollar bill.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy.
Okay.
Oh, man.
And then secondly, the slope angle of the Jed Efre pyramid, which is actually a large pyramid. Now, you have to put this in context. It's already 300 feet higher than the Giza Plateau, looks down on the Giza Plateau. And that pyramid, I believe it had a 56-degree angle, a 3/2 relationship, filling out this tetractys. Looking down on the Giza Plateau, and its height, if it was a 56-degree angle, would have been 559 feet high.
Wow.
In comparison to the Great Pyramid. Because it would be looking down because its elevation is so much higher. So the Great Pyramid's 481 feet. So that says that there should have been 5 pyramids depicted on the Giza Plateau, right? So now check this out. Let's see how mind-blown you get today, Billy. Okay, so I found a map that was from 1457. This map was the known world in 1457. And this map today sits in the Galileo Museum in Florence. Okay. And if you've never been to the Galileo Museum, I highly recommend it. It's a cool place.
Yeah. I got to check it out.
Now, they show on this map the view from Europe, right? So it's like you're looking down on the world. Like if you went from the center of Europe, like around where Poland is, and then went straight up in the sky and then looked down at the planet, that's the view you're looking at.
Gotcha.
So this is Egypt right here. So here's the Nile Delta, right, coming in. And it's interesting that the name that they apply to the river Nile on this map was Gihon.
Wow.
Now you might recognize that name, Gihon, because that's the name of the river that flows out of the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, look at this. How many pyramids are there?
Yes. Wow.
One,
there they go, right
two,
there.
three, 4, 5.
Wow. That's
what
wild.
the hell? Right?
Wow.
What the hell? So
the other two could be either destroyed or covered up.
they're partially destroyed. So I'm going there in a few months, right? And I'm going to go check it out because you have to have permission to go to Abu Rawash. And they all have musical notes. Each pyramid now, I believe they have musical notes. We're piecing that music together. Maybe what we think of as Metatronic keys are actually musical keys.
Yeah. I have a hypothesis of what this music is for. It could be if they knew, whoever it was who built these knows the frequencies, knows the sounds, know the notes, they could be the key to activating a portal.
Okay. This is part of the reason I'm going.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
And I'm also inviting you.
Hey, I'm there, man. You already know I'm there.
So this is going to be an epic thing because what we discovered in Menkaure Pyramid was a Garden of Eden scene all over the walls.
Yes,
and on your next trip, I've already arranged that you will go and visit because I talked to Muhammad about it, and specifically for you, because I think you're going in October, right?
Yeah, October. Yep.
Yep. They're going to take you in and show you all the stuff we found on the walls in Menkaure, which was the Garden of Eden scene and the staff of Hermes and serpents all over the walls and many tree of life.
Yeah. Incredible. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to that.
And now it's interesting that Gihon River is referenced in this 500-year-old map as being the River Nile. Yeah. And Gihon means gushing water, and represents the Kushite people. Yeah. The gush is Kush. It's the same word root, right? Yeah. So this is like becoming a real national treasure adventure, right? Which I think is super fascinating. And I wanted to run this by you today to see if you'd heard of any of this before. But I think we're about to be able to make a connection between the Abu Rawash pyramids and Giza, that they're all part of the same complex.
Right. Listen, man, that's a massive find. And this thing with the music really intrigues me because I can see the technology from back then operated differently than what we would consider technology now. Like now we would press a button, we would flip a switch. Everything was totally different. The way things activated and operated in the ancient past are totally different than we have today. Our technology today is really our I guess the system that we use of technology, or the way that we feel progressively the mind would understand it, is very rudimentary. Back then, a lot of things were based on frequencies, and the fact that these make specific notes, those notes could be the key. I'm thinking now those notes have to be the key to activate some type of a portal. It just makes sense to me. And only the people who knew the specific frequency can activate it.
Yep. So this is what I'm going to show you next, right? Which is this geometric enigma of Philosopher's Stone, because I think that's what this is really leading us to.
Enigma finally solved. So start with a radius of 2. That's the only circle whose circumference is equal to its area. And then place a square around that circle, which will have each side of 4, and that is the only square that exists that will have an equal area to its perimeter. Now we're going to add circles of the same size above and below for a total of 3 circles. And then we'll add 2 also at the base, and these will be overlapping the bottom circle. And then we're going to add 2 lines that are going to be tangent to those base circles and then meet at the apex. That's going to create a triangle. And just like the square and the circles, this triangle is the only triangle as a 5, 12, 13 Pythagorean triple that shares the exact same area and perimeter value. In this case, it's 30. Now, where does this look familiar? This is kind of an interesting proportion. Now we're going to add a large circle from the center of that center circle extending to the base of the triangle, and then to use the base of the triangle to create a square. That square and circle proportion looks very familiar, doesn't it? It matches that of the Vitruvian Man. But also, we'll notice that the top portion of the triangle and the circle and the square also seem to match something else that we've seen before in esoterica, and that is this. This is Michael Mayer's 1618 emblem book entitled Atlanta Fusions. And this has always been an enigma. It's always believed to have been related to Philosopher's Stone. But we have to ask ourselves, why doesn't that circle touch the apex of the triangle? The answer is because it's perfectly encrypted to include the only correct circle with equal area and circumference, the only correct triangle, and the only correct square that have equal circumference, area, perimeter values. This is basically identifying the absolute uniqueness. This is like the unicorn of all geometry. The uniqueness is equal to the individuation process. That is the secret of Philosopher's Stone.
Man, it's crazy. Incredible. Incredible, man. Wow.
So this is, I think this is starting to unravel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And I believe that the pyramids, while I believe they also created energy, you know, I just went to visit a Tesla tower, a Wardenclyffe tower. There's actually one now in Texas. And the company invited me to go out there and review it, and they demonstrated it for me. And it worked. It was lighting light bulbs across a massive field, like almost a mile in distance, just with radio waves.
Wow.
And the reason why I was there is because they were asking me how they might be able to encrypt the radio waves.
Gotcha.
Right?
That makes sense. Yeah. Then you can tap in, people can tap into the encryption and utilize the electricity.
That's right. So they had like TV crews and everything for their, you know, for when I went to visit. It was fascinating. I'm telling you, it was like super fascinating. But I believe that the pyramids had this energy aspect to it, but I believe that was secondary. I believe that it was predominantly about mankind's ascension. And I think this story of Orion is all throughout it. It's the plight. It's the story of mankind living in duality, in the duat.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we're seeing it as a self-similar fractal all over the planet. So then it makes me really think of this place as more of a simulation.
Yeah.
And then the role of ETs is just the flora and fauna expansion of diversity as we ascend to higher states of consciousness. If I'm a grasshopper at a lower state of consciousness, the field is my universe.
Yeah.
I know nothing more. But as I expand and I grow, and maybe, you know, I come back and I live in rural America, and I can hear about what the sky looks like in Alaska, but unless I go there, I don't exactly know how clear it is. Right. Or I maybe have heard of, you know, this tribe of people that live in Japan that are Caucasian called the Innu, but I don't know that they really exist.
Yeah.
Until maybe later I come back again as an adventurer who's been all over the world, and I've seen it with my own eyes. And then I come back as an ascended man. So we're going through the stages of Homo erectus to Homo sapien to Homo sanctus luminous, sacred light.
Yeah.
And we're just expanding. And as part of that, our consciousness expands so that we can now perceive the intraterrestrials and extraterrestrial beings that are in higher dimension.
Yeah. It's a gradual process of, I call it the ascension process. It's just this gradual process of rising and rising and rising to the highest level. But just like a video game has levels, you know, you start off at the lowest level at the beginning of the game. You have multiple lives. And if you die on the way up through one of these levels, you get to come back and try again. So, and if you keep going on and on and on, you get to win new lives. You can get more lives so that if you die again, you have extra lives to stacked up. I think video games are a fractal of what we're experiencing here.
And so maybe finding the musical keys is just part of the game.
Yeah, very possible. Yeah.
So I could see the dots connecting for you when and I know when I can see that in your eyes, because your eyes
my brain is going crazy right now. I'm trying to keep my poker face.
So what's cool is not only did that analysis of the grid, which, by the way, what makes that grid? The flower of life makes that grid.
Yeah.
That grid of
integers
crazy. Is the flower of life. So think about the implications now. And I've now taken this to include not only the pyramids there, and I know a lot of people think that the Bosnian pyramids are not real, right? But I can tell you it matches the integer grid.
Yeah, they're real.
I can also tell you that the pyramids on Faroe Islands, north of Scotland, which are massive, match this integer grid as well.
Wow.
And I can tell you that the pyramids in China match the grid. And I I included Chichen Itza, I included Tikal, I included Cholula. All of them match the grid.
Wow.
The flower of life grid.
Yeah. So where you have specific intersections and there's no pyramid, maybe it was destroyed, or maybe it's submerged underneath the ocean or underneath the lake.
So yeah, I think you're right. And what it means is that there's literally, it's like a giant, I see this as a giant musical instrument that spans the globe. Each one is a different musical note.
Yeah. The next key is, once the notes are identified, how do you harmonize them? Will they harmonize all at once, or the specific order to play them in? That's a whole other key code combination.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you're right, though. I believe that I have a feeling that singing the notes in front of the structures, the exact notes, in precise tempered 432 hertz tuning, it will open a portal.
Yeah. There's a K2 megalith, they call it the K2 megalith, that giant crystal underneath the Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia. And written on it in runes, it says, "We must stand in defense until we can open the gate." You're talking about the Stargate. It's a gigantic crystal that has something to do with this gate that's inside the Pyramid of the Sun there, that activates the Stargate. Again, maybe it's a specific frequency, but they were in some type of a pyramid war, which is noted in these ancient tablets. And at that time they were fighting, they were all trying to get to the Stargate to escape this thing, whatever this war was. It's pretty interesting. The K2 megalith, giant crystal that was found there underneath one of the tunnels leading to the Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia.
See, that's the reason why I wanted to share this with you, because I didn't know that. And I knew you would have some sort of, feeling about this. And it's a fascinating thing. I think also this is fundamental as to why we have the different obelisks placed in strategic locations by the Freemasons. And they each, the one in New York City, I analyzed this one as well. By the way, I found a tree of life and a staff of Hermes on the base stone side, south side of the Cleopatra's Needle next to the Met in New York. And I found a flower of life pattern on the other side as well. Once you know how to see it and how to look for it, you can't unsee it. And what's fascinating about it is underneath this pyramid is a time capsule. And guess what's in the time capsule? The Bible, King James Version, all of the collective works of comprehensive works of William Shakespeare, which we know are fully encrypted, and they're written by the same people that wrote the Bible. And then the other thing that's in there is the Declaration of Independence.
Wow.
Now, here's a mind blower. Okay, so I immediately tell Alan Green, so you didn't know you were going to get mind blown on this one. This is I didn't tell you on purpose because I love when I get to blow your mind, dude. It's very rare that Billy Carson gets his mind blown.
It's rare, man, but you're doing it right now. This is like, my brain is exploding it's imploding right now. I'm trying to calculate all this stuff.
Yeah, dude, this is epic. So let me pull this up for you. Right. So this is Cleopatra's Needle.
Yeah.
In New York. Right. And you'll recognize it if you've been. There's like these lobster claws that they put at the base of it.
Yeah.
And it's in Central Park. And there was a fire. And so some of the hieroglyphics got burned off, right? Like literally burned off of it. But on each of these sides, right, inside this stone section right here are faint petroglyphs on all four sides. On all four sides, and I can show you the videos of that separately. I don't have it on my computer here, but they're there. And so, of course, when I found out that the 3 items that were in this time capsule were literally the Bible, King James Version, which was written in large part by the same people that we believe wrote the works of William Shakespeare. They were all Rosicrucian scholars led by Francis Bacon, John Dee, Edward de Vere, right? Kit Marlowe. These guys were cryptographers extraordinaire. And so I immediately tell Alan Green, I'm like, Alan, I have a feeling that this thing is encrypted. And so Alan's like, okay, of course, whenever he goes down an encryption tunnel, because the encryption that is associated with each of those books is actually the identical encryption. It's based on a grid pattern. So they're grids that they use. These are cryptographic ciphers that are kind of well known, right, in the field. And so basically, I'll pull this up for you. I tell him, I'm like, look, you need to now look at the Declaration of Independence because it probably means the Declaration of Independence is also encrypted.
Yeah.
So it turns out
this is like National Treasure, the movie. You're right. This is crazy stuff, man.
Yep. This is crazy stuff. So it turns out if we look up the Declaration of Independence, the original document, there are 2 mistakes in it. And this is the same cryptographic approach that was taken by the William Shakespeare, in that the way you find his encryptions is the paginations are wrong. So there's mistakes. So it'll say like 51, 49, and then the next page will be, instead of being 50, it's completely wrong, right? It'll be 47, 48, and then 49, and then 50 is missing, and then it goes to 51. So that's how you know there's an encryption on that next page, right? And so you start searching, and you do this exact grid pattern, which Alan became an expert in. But here's the Declaration of Independence. So there's 2 places where there are mistakes. Okay. You could see one of them, and they put a little arrow right here telling you to put the EN. Now, imagine this document was written by one of the best calligraphers in the world, probably at the time. They knew it was the most important document they were ever going to be writing in their entire lives. And there's only 2 mistakes in it. And he took the word representation and he took the word, he left out the EN. Wow. So it had to be added in with this little pyramid shaped thing right here underneath it. The other place that happened, which in French, by the way, which everyone spoke at the time, N means in. N means in French, right? Also Latin. So then we've got only down here. So the word only was omitted. So they put another pyramid right in here. Only in. Or in only.
Right.
Okay. Now, it just so happens if you take a straight line from this point at the center of the N down to the line where the only is, and then create a right angle here, you get exactly a 67.4 degree angle, which is exactly the 5, 12, 13 triangle, which is the Philosopher's Stone pyramid. matching the one on the dollar bill with the Eye of Providence.
Crazy.
The one that is right next to the
Yep.
Jet Efre
That's
pyramid
incredible.
on Abu Rawash.
Yeah, this is not a coincidence. This is real, man. Wow.
This
Wow.
is the first time this has ever been seen. There is an
This is
encryption
incredible.
embedded inside of the Declaration of Independence,
Man.
of the Philosopher's Stone. Now, why would they do it? Why
Yeah.
would they do it? So this is where it gets really fun, Billy. So Francis Bacon, do you know anything about Francis Bacon?
Francis Bacon is an incredible author from the past. He also has a translation of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's just like
Yeah.
you, bro. He's got
Yeah.
he's like he wrote a book on the Emerald Tablets. Right? There are a few people have done
Yeah.
that, but Francis Bacon had a vision. The
Mhm.
founding fathers of America believed all of them were Freemasons and Rosicrucians. 50 out of the 55 signers of the Declaration of Independence were all Hermetic followers. They're all Hermetists.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they believed that they
Yeah.
had divine providence in them because they didn't believe they were just establishing the United States of America. They believed they were creating a
Mhm.
new Atlantis.
New Atlantis. That's right.
Right?
Yep.
Now, where did this come from? Because
Mhm.
they were all devotees of Sir Francis Bacon, also known as the father of
Mhm.
English literature, right? Even above that of Shakespeare. He was definitely a phenomenal writer, but he was a polymath also. And Francis
Yeah.
Bacon wrote a book called Ben Shalem. So Shalem is the same place where Jerusalem sits today. Jerusalem or Shalem, right, is the original name. And this is the place in the Bible where Melchizedek, also believed to be one of the incarnations of Thoth,
Yeah.
the prince or king of peace, reigned. And in fact,
Mhm.
it's where Abraham, the father of nations, paid tithing to Melchizedek.
Yeah.
So Melchizedek was the priest of the Most High, but he was also like a priest king.
Mhm.
It was a theocracy.
Right. Which is what the ancient Egyptians, the pre-dynastic Egyptians called Thoth. They called him, and he even called himself a priest king.
Yes. So Melchizedek. So Malki and Zedek. Zedek can mean like righteousness or peace.
Mhm.
And Malki means king. It's from also the Pakistani name, which is, or Indian name sometimes is Malik. Malik means king.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So
it's king of peace. Right.
King of righteousness. So this is Melchizedek. Now, Salem was the original name of Jerusalem. It took on when the tribe of Judah got control of it, it became Jerusalem, right? So basically you have to go back to the encampment of the 12 tribes, which, by the way, had encoded within it in the King James Version of the Bible, the speed of light and pi and the diameter of the moon and the radius of the moon. It was all in there based on the number of people that were in the tribe that was led by Jerusalem, by Judah, which was represented by the lion, right? It was the lion. That's why when you go to Jerusalem, there's a lion everywhere. The tribe of Judah had 186,400 members in it, in the camp of the tabernacle, the camp around the tabernacle, which matched the Great Pyramid, right? Because you had the lion, the four fixed signs, the man, the bull, which was Manasseh and Ephraim, and then you have the eagle, which is is basically the tribe of Gad. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think it's Gad. And so basically,
G-E-B.
you've got these four tribes around, and then they had sub tribes within that then those four had three within, and so you had 12, right? Total tribes. Well, what's fascinating about all of this is that this Ben Shalem, which was an ancient reference to Jerusalem, is actually a new reference to a new Jerusalem and a new earth.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
Which
I
is what's
believe
talked about in the book of Revelations.
exactly. And I believe that where we're getting pointed to with this philosopher's stone, which represents the perfect triangle, triangle represents divinity, represents first the balance within mankind must be achieved of masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
Then once that is perfectly achieved, then we go into this divine nature. It's like the alpha omega becomes alpha chi omega. And the chi becomes this divine X. That's why we're seeing X images show up everywhere. Twitter changes its name to X, right? We have the X now, in addition to the ones and zeros in binary code, becoming trinary code. So this X is this nature of the divine returning to earth. And so what I believe is that the entryway into the New Jerusalem is through this divine door, only in the achievement of the philosopher's stone, represented by this particular proportional triangle, which I believe is the satellite that is directly adjacent to the Djed pyramid, the Djed Efre pyramid in Abu Rawash.
Yeah. Wow. Man, this is huge, man. This is like groundbreaking news, really. And once this thing is all completely laid out, and you know, again, going out there is like the most important thing. But wow, yeah. If I can be a part of that, I would love to be a part of that, man. I think this is massive.
Dude, you are a part of it. I would never do it without you. So,
thank you.
So the thing is, I know that you're going to have a million thoughts, and probably a million thoughts after this call as well, because you have such an encyclopedic knowledge of all of these ancient sites, everything. A lot of the stuff I'm saying will probably only get connected in your mind after the fact, but I wanted to catch you fresh and see if there's anything that you feel, you know, intuitively to point us towards. And, you know, like, I felt like you understood this whole nature of the keys, which are musical keys. That resonates, right? I'm sure deeply for you. But what beyond that, what other images are you seeing in your mind, your pineal gland right now?
Well, you know, interestingly enough, one thing is solidifying to me is really that some of these characters that are in these biblical texts are definitely related to these characters in other texts, which are not humans. In other words, not Homo sapiens sapien, number one, but that we need to find a way to get a scan of some of the deserts, not only across, you know, Africa and Giza, but even in other areas. If we can get some type of a radar scan and see and find as many missing pyramids as we can. I think there's probably 200 or 300 missing pyramids that we can find just from a satellite scan in those desert regions alone, which could help connect even more dots. I think they're there, but they're also buried. And I think they were buried on purpose. Most of them were buried on purpose, not by time, but actually purposefully buried because they're hiding the key to this whole thing.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And that definitely resonates. And I was already thinking under similar, you know, in a similar line of thought. And what do you think? I mean, what would be the purpose of making like a giant musical? First of all, okay, there are some big implications here that we kind of call out, right? Yeah. This idea that these pyramids were built over thousands of years on entirely different timelines. How the hell would you get another pyramid builder to agree to build based on a particular base, 1/2 base to the height, that's tied to something from 1,000 years before?
No, right.
You wouldn't, right? They'd be like, I'm going to do it my way.
It's hard to do that. Yeah.
That's really damn hard to do that.
Every one of them had egos.
Every one of them had egos. So what this is telling me is a totally new thesis, is that, wait a minute, were all these pyramids built in close proximity of time?
Yeah, had to be. It just had to be. The time window can't be as expanded as they want us to believe. It's got to be a much smaller window of time. Otherwise, you can't keep the consistency along. I went to Cambodia and went to all the ancient temples there, Angkor Wat, Ta Prohm, and so forth. And as you go forward in time, the temple structures, they're not megalithic, they're falling apart, they're collapsing. But the further you go back in time to the temples,
they're
the
solid,
more sturdy and complex and megalithic they are. So these pyramids, for whatever reason, they were built at a much closer period of time together to keep the consistency of this discovery that you have. There's no way they can be expanded over too far time, because it wouldn't match up. Things would change, construction techniques would change, the use of materials would change over time. It just wouldn't work.
It's that to me says that this was a global coordinated effort.
Mm-hmm. Yep, which has been my thing since the beginning. We're living in a civilization that was connected globally since ancient times.
Yeah,
yep, absolutely.
And that just that notion, and we've got now the evidence to prove it, because they all use the same geometric pattern to build all the pyramids. And now we can see which pyramids, not every pyramid, the you know, like the step pyramid doesn't match this.
Right. Yeah.
The small brick constructions don't match the integer grid.
No.
The large large stone construction pyramids do match the integer grid, which is really matching Flower of Life.
Right.
So what it says to me is that they were all built in a coordinated, centralized plan.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Under the direction of either a very small group of architects or maybe even one.
Yeah, one master architect. One master architect. And it could be Thoth, the Atlantean priest king. You know, it could be. A lot of it points back to him. And this could be the master architect that spread that knowledge around the entire planet and started this global design or layout of these pyramid structures to build this particular frequency generator that created maybe a harmonic resonance that helped raise consciousness, that could have transmitted information. It could have been a type of a World Wide Web at the time. There's so many uses for this, we can't even calculate how many uses it could have been for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly how I see it as well. And I just think that the whole thing is super fascinating to me, that you know, we're sitting here now finding this relationship that's kind of, frankly, undeniable. Wouldn't you understand that there's a grid pattern? That's why I'm presenting this at 2 conferences. And the Giza Plateau is built on Metatron's cube. There's no doubt about it. But Metatron's cube and the Flower of Life are the same thing. We're just now looking at a fractalization of a pattern.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Wow, man. Mind-blowing stuff. I'm looking forward to being involved with this, because this is like literally making history, tracking this down. This goes into history books, like bringing this forward. This is now history. I mean, you're literally like saying, okay, this is a discovery that's so new. And so you've put the pieces of the puzzle together. There's a lot more to collect and a lot more, you know, dots to connect. But this is like a major, major piece to opening up and expanding, like what happened in the ancient past, which has been my biggest thing. Like, how can we figure out the technologies being used, the communication systems being used, what this frequency could be for? Could it be to open portals? Could it be for maybe opening portals, higher resonance? It could be raising consciousness. It could be World Wide Web. It could be, there's so many things, and it could be used for multiple things. It could be a multifunctional, you know, these pyramids could be multifunctional stone computers, or, you know, data collectors or databases. I mean, there's so much stuff that can be, it's mind-blowing, man. It's really mind-blowing.
I think the key right now is, once you balance the square and circle, and you've balanced the energies of masculine and feminine, then you are able to transcend beyond the dualistic plane. Yeah. And so the way I describe that is that it's achieving a degree of enlightenment. This is when the divine comes into us. That degree of enlightenment I would describe as the moment that your expression of love supersedes your desire for objective truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once you're able to realize,
go ahead. Let you finish.
Yeah, once you're able to realize that your perspective is only one facet of a larger prism of truth, and that the whole reason for having all these different prisms of truth is to expand consciousness by gaining more wisdom from more and more and more perspectives. So that's our purpose here on Earth, that we are here providing the universe the opportunity to observe itself through our unique conditioning biases, which will never be the same in anyone ever in the past, and never be the same ever again in the future.
Yeah. That's incredible. And so what I kind of liken it to is, like I said before, Jesus said he was never going to return. He said the Christ would return. It's Christ consciousness. And so we're talking about achieving a level of this Christ consciousness where now we're operating in a certain level of understanding from a higher perspective. We've been born again through a conscious rising, so we can look back on our previous selves and see where we used to be and now recognize where we are. And this is all part of that entire process, operating in a certain level of unconditional love and being able to gain this wisdom and gain this knowledge, but also utilize it. In other words, not just knowing about it, but how do we act on it? How can we utilize this information to make us better and grow as a civilization on this planet and continue the ascension process?
I think I totally agree. And once we transcend beyond duality, the ultimate duality is time itself.
Yeah.
Because past and future are just duality perceptions.
Yep, absolutely.
Time doesn't exist. It's only existing in our perception. Even Einstein would say that. Einstein did say it's a persistent perception. It's a persistent view of that leads us to experience not the now, but the future and the past. And so we're never in the now, in the old model. But now, as we transcend this, then we're only in the now. We're no longer focused in the future or focused in the past. I don't know if you know much about Dolores Cannon, but someone sent me this, and I wanted to finish on this. Dolores was this hypnotist who was also a psychic and would basically do like past life regressions on people. You're probably aware of Dolores. She passed away in 2014.
Yep.
And someone sent this to me, which is fascinating. So I'll just play this real quick.
Things were in the wall of the pyramid. Nobody who would just pass by, it would be totally invisible until the right person with the right symbol match with the symbols they put on the hidden part. Then they'll be able to see them and they'll be able to find them and use them in our time period. The symbol has to match the symbol of the person. Hidden thing.
Isn't that fascinating?
Man, wow. She was ahead of the game. This lady, man, incredible.
So hidden things in the walls. And we've now discovered all three pyramids. And you and I and I've got to finish some of the editing of this with Melissa, but we did a whole, live session, or I guess it was in person rather, in your house. And where we're talking about all of this stuff. But now all the pieces of this are coming together, as you can see, at a very, very rapid pace.
Yeah. Man, it's moving extremely fast now. And you're spearheading this, which is incredible because you really are, a person that has, intuitively tapped into a higher level of thinking that nobody to date has really expressed when it comes to even seeing these things. Your pineal gland opened you up, your antenna opened you up to somehow see something that nobody has seen for thousands of years. Nobody was even able to perceive it. And then once you saw it, then it's like, oh, now I can see it. So it's like you lit the way for everyone else to be able to finally see what was right in front of our eyes the whole time. This is incredible, man. Incredible.
Billy, I love you to death. You're the best.
I love you too, man.
Thank you for what you did with this consciousness award thing. And I know your intention behind it was beautiful. And I love how you always bring love and gratitude and graciousness and kindness into the world wherever you go. So thank you for all that you do, and thanks for being my friend. I very much appreciate you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you too, man.